Hi, hello, how are you? And welcome back to another speed build. So, I left a hint at the end of my 8 sim tiny house build video. Oh my gosh, just thinking about that, I'm like, "Ugh." um, and I said it'd be big. Oh my gosh, did I mean it? So, this is the first. I haven't decided. I think it's just going to be two parts, the exterior and the interior. But I built a castle. I've never done this before. I've always wanted to do something like this because you watch amazing builds of things that like massive things. I mean I'm mainly thinking of Kate Emerald. She does her thing is massive, beautiful builds and like but then you also have people that are doing like I think it was Sim proved that after Tiny Living came out, she built that entire like fantasy type town that was technically a tiny house. So people build amazing large builds all the time. They do incredible things with terrain. And that's not the kind of stuff I usually do, but it's stuff that I want to be able to do. And so this build was oh my gosh, this build was a learning experience for so many reasons. The main thing that I was thinking of when I started was I want to do something with terrain because I almost never do anything with terrain. And if I do, it's really an afterthought. So I was like, all right, let's play with terrain. Let's make a huge mountain side thing and then let's build a castle. And the castle got out of hand really fast because I don't build big builds. And as of recording this voiceover, I have not furnished this castle yet and I am frightened because I don't know what to do with all that space. Luckily, with castles, like that whole idea is so much of the space is going to be empty anyway, like event space. So there will be at least one ballroom in this castle for sure, and things like that. But I am really happy with how it came out. I was working off of pictures of a lot of different things, actually. Mostly, I think I was looking at French and German castles. I could be completely wrong. The images I was looking at were on Pinterest, so most of them weren't labeled. But I knew I didn't really want to do a fairy tale castle, although you will see me struggling a lot to try my absolute best to add a turret like with a point and stuff. And I did eventually add on that side, on the left side. Um oh, I I can never remember what it's called, but where the walls are different heights on a castle wall, I did add a small square section of the build that has that at the top. And then I did red brick because my favorite castle that I was looking at was this red brick and white and red roof. And that's why I went with a kind of red toned roof. And I'm telling you, so if you watch art, people that do art videos on YouTube, or if you just like hang out with or talk to artists, it's kind of a common thing in art that everything goes through an ugly teenager phase between like, oh, I love this sketch and oh, this is a finished piece. There's always that moment where you're like, oh no, I don't think this is gonna make it. And honestly, until I put the windows and doors on the exterior of this, I was like, this is kind of okay, but oh, I don't think it's gonna make it. And there were so many ideas I had that I just did not either aren't possible in The Sims or I just don't really have the building skill, and I'll admit that, like, I am not. I think I build pretty cool stuff. I have a lot of fun building, but I'll admit that, like, I am not on the level of some of these people that build massive things like this. And like I said, this was meant to be an experiment and a learning experience and all of that good stuff. But I think it came out cool, and I can't wait to furnish it and then like play in this thing just for my own sake. But once I put the windows on it, and I did use kind of a mix of windows, but I like how it came out. I was using Strangerville. I used a lot of Strangerville windows because they're so unique. And I was like, this castle needs to make a statement. And so I don't know how you feel about the windows, but I think they're pretty cool. And playing with textures and like different colors of brick and things, just so the castle had a presence and an interesting silhouette's probably not the right word, but like an interesting kind of not only shape, this thing is kind of crazily shaped. And I realize, like, you'll see now when I'm adding balconies and things that I put it on a weird angle because I built this weird mountain. And then I had to kind of deal with that when I wanted to put balconies and things because obviously you can't put stairs on a diagonal for whatever reason in The Sims. But I think it all came out because it made the entrance unique and I end up adding this little platform type fountain area at the bottom. So there's like this grand walk up that I really like. I don't know, and I will say I guess I cheated that middle hallway. area that I used. I think it's 2 stories that I used to connect the 2 main parts of the castle on the 2 different levels of that mountain. I was like, there's no way. I don't know how I'm going to furnish this. Like, it's already too big. And so I made it like an outdoor walkway. So there doesn't need to be anything out there. Maybe I'll put some statues or something in that walkway when I furnish it. But I was like, nope, let's minimize the struggle that I'm going to have to do. I also have the kind of open area that on the one side where it's those kind of half hexagonal rooms with the windows. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with those, but there was a castle that I was working off of that had that kind of open thing going on, like down the front. So I don't know if I'm going to leave it open and then leave the wall inside that, like the back of that room space, like solid, or if I'll put doors there and it'll be like a weird windowed roofless sunroom. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I like how it looks from the outside, so I can figure out the inside later. The hardest part of this, honestly, once I got the windows down and added the balconies and things, especially once I go back and add the back balcony that you'll see, I was really happy with it. I also did add into this castle 2 non-functional towers. So there are 2 towers, one on the left and one on the right, that I really like aesthetically, but there will be no way for Sims to access them. I built them that way. I was like, I want the castle to have more presence, but I don't really want more square footage necessarily. And so I added those 2 towers and they'll be empty. When I furnish it, I do plan to put like lights in the windows and stuff so that at night the whole castle lights up and it's really big and beautiful and impressive. But I don't think I'll be furnishing them or doing anything with them. But that being said, as with all my builds, you are free to manipulate them. I feel like I have a friend that downloads some of my builds sometimes and she uses them and she'll be apologize to me. She's like, I'm sorry, but I'm changing this. I'm like, no, change it. Tell me what you do. Like I want to see it. So I hope if you download it that you change it. Like use those empty towers. Like, I don't know, maybe maybe you have a really interesting family living here and they need towers to lock people in. I don't know, but there's an option. But like I said, landscaping was the hardest part because, like I said, I am inspired by namely Kate Emerald for big builds like this, and I've noticed that a thing that a lot of people do with big builds like this is they don't use the rock face texture. Like they don't leave it exposed because you raise the terrain and then there's the grass, but there's also that rock face texture. And depending on how steep it is, it doesn't look good. And so there are places where I left it exposed because the gradient of the land was gradual enough for it to be like, oh, it's like exposed or whatever. But like on those really steep mountain faces, I did use rocks to cover it up. I used a lot of a rock from, and these are all live edit objects from Get Together. And then towards the end, I think I mainly used a rock from Cats and Dogs. And I think they're 2 slightly different colors, but I think it works because so all the rocks aren't uniform. And I also used Kate Emerald's trick of using that flat bush to add some greenery and texture to the outside of the mountain. I also added a waterfall. My favorite thing that I did is on the side, I added a waterfall. I think it's 2 waterfalls that lead into a pool that is meant to be. It's like a water feature. It's natural, and so I covered like the edges of the pool with plants and things that swims can actually swim in. That Sims can actually swim in. I do know that. I tested that waterfall several times because I was like, this is the one thing that like I need this to work with the terrain because like you don't need to be able to interact with all the bushes and things I'm placing. So I thought that was really cool, and I think I don't know, it just adds interest to it. I also added, so this lot was big. I can't remember what the name of this lot is, but it's the big lot on the island, I think, in Get Together, and on the left side of the map. And so I just bulldozed that whole thing. I was like, get out of here. But it was still huge, even with all this stuff I put on it. And so I ended up putting a forest in the back to fill some of that space because as big as the castle is and like the water feature and everything else, like there's so much walking space. I didn't feel bad filling half the lot with a forest. It can be the dark forest that your Sims are forbidden to go in. I don't know. But your Sims aren't going to walk around this whole lot. And I mean, I know mine aren't, so I can't imagine. And I was going to add like all these like complicated paths, and I thought about a hedge maze, and I was like, it's going to be too much, you know? I may add a few more things when I furnish the castle, just depending on where that goes. But I am really happy with how the paths came and things like that, because so much of the castle, and especially I think it's also because a lot of the references I were working on was working off of were of castles that were up on these huge mountains and cliff sides and things that were surrounded by water. So I didn't really have much of an idea of what I would even do with that kind of flat terrain space. I was like, this is an area that no one's really going in. Like, you're either on the proper castle grounds or you're in the castle. You know what I mean? If you're in the dark forest, I don't know what's gonna happen to you. I'm just saying, like, who knows what's in there? You That's where you go to get abducted. And if you're in the royal family, like, do you really want to get abducted? No, I don't think so. I don't really think so. But that being said, I did, like I said, I added a lot of outdoor space to the castle. There's the fountain area that I had seating around. I also added a pond. Oh, that's my favorite thing. Okay, I keep saying that like all the water features are my favorite thing, but I did add in the space, and you'll see it, where I put the fountain on the lower level below the main entrance to the castle. And there is really only one entrance to the castle. I might, no, I think that's the only entrance I added to the castle. But I just, I could have added more, but with the terrain, I was like, there's not really, there's not really anywhere for you to come up here. And I was like, that's fine. We only need one entrance, because with big builds like these, one thing I do know is that if you're playing, not that I could imagine, like if you live in a house this big, the shell on its own, I think, was 150,000 simoleons, somewhere like that. Also, can I just interrupt myself to say that I spent like 5.5 hours building this exterior and doing all this landscaping. Like, I think that's the longest I've spent on the exterior, like the exterior alone of a build, in so long. Normally my builds, because I'm building like normal size houses and things, they don't like max 5 hours whole build. Like, because normally, I mean, I have a vision and it's like, you go in, you just do it. But this, I was working the whole time. I was really working to think of not only what it would look like generally, but how I wanted Sims to interact with it. And I interrupted myself twice, because what I was talking about originally was the pond. Is on the right side, there was this empty space in front of one of those non-functional towers, and I was going to close it off from the little fountain area, and I was going to turn it into like a little romantic seating area with a tree or something. And I was like, what if we make this just a little bit more functional, and I put a pond in there, because we have them in debug, and I put rocks around it too, so you can't see the exposed edges. Because that, I was surprised that the pond really interacted weird with the terrain. No matter how much I flattened it out, it still floated a little bit on the edges. Like, you could there, or well, I guess it didn't float. There was like a lighting glitch that I couldn't figure out. So I put a lot of rocks around it, and I think it helped it blend in well too. And it's kind of funny. I was thinking of it after. I was like, this pond looks pretty wild to be on like the grounds of this castle, but I like it. I think it's charming, and your Sims can fish at it. Although I didn't put a sign. I need to put a sign when I furnish the castle, so that your Sims actually can build. What am I saying today? So they can actually fish and things with the pond. But I kind of, the hard part about those signs is the signs look silly, but you need your sim to be able to access them to do the fishing action, but you also want to hide them. So maybe I'll make it really small. I don't know. I haven't decided, but I will be adding that. And I am really, there is outdoor space that I want to decorate. I might add more plants and things outside of windows and things like that when I furnish it. But I'm really excited. Have to decide what I want to do with the big, massive balcony I put that hangs over the mountain. I put a glass. I don't remember what pack it came from, but it is debug. It's a big glass like covering, and it's not necessarily like you wouldn't see it in a picture of a castle on Pinterest, but I really like how it blends in and matches the marble and all the windows and things. So I'm keeping it as the like covering. Like, come on, it's a castle. We're not exactly going to have an awning, you know? So keep that as a covering on the castle. And just, I'm really proud of this. I don't know if you have any comments or suggestions, or like, oh, the castle needs this, especially for the inside. If you have a room on the inside of the castle, like, make suggestions, because I am super open to ideas. This has been a grand experiment. And it's funny, because as much as I was like holding my head in my hands, like, what am I going to do with this castle? I'm really excited about it, and I've been thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I need to furnish the castle. Like, there's so many things I could do, and I want to build more big builds. This has actually given me a lot of confidence for another big build that I want to do, that I've been putting off because I didn't know how to approach it. And that is a mall for Magnolia Promenade, because it has kind of a mall, but it's boring. It's just a giant furniture store. But that's what I want to build. And I think like having to deal with all the complications of a castle is really prepped me for that. But anyway, as you might know, I saved the screenshots for two-part builds until the final part. So I'm going to leave you for now and share the interior of this castle soon. Also, if you want to name this castle, I have no idea what I want to call it. So leave name suggestions for this lot down below. But until then, I'm going to let you go. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell notification if you're feeling sassy. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!